Welcome to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. Shipping company Ernst Russ said the rest of the Salong crew were Russian and Filipino. It comes after cops said a man has been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter in connection with Monday's horror crash off the coast of Hull. Humberside police said a 59-year-old is in custody to allow inquiries to take place. Cops are continuing to speak to those involved to understand what happened after the vessel collided with U.S.-flagged tanker Stena Immaculate. Plenty of unanswered questions remain, including why anti-crash systems failed. The White House has also not ruled out foul play, according to a senior official. One crew member was declared missing before a search was called off. The force is working alongside the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency. The tanker was carrying jet fuel and chartered by the U.S. military. In a statement on Wednesday morning, the force said, detectives are continuing to conduct extensive lines of inquiry alongside partners in connection with the collision between a tanker and cargo vessel in the North Sea, off the coast of Grimsby, northeast Lincolnshire. A 59-year-old man remains in our custody, having been arrested on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter in connection with the collision. The 23 crew on board the 50,000-ton Stena Immaculate, a U.S. military vessel, abandoned ship with seconds to spare after it was rammed by the Portuguese-flagged cargo ship Salong. Millions of gallons of aviation fuel poured into the sea and ignited, creating a massive fireball which suddenly engulfed both vessels. The entire crew of the Stena Immaculate scrambled for their lifeboat as a series of explosions tore through the ship before incredibly escaping the flames with only their hair singed. A further 13 on board the Salong, which is still ablaze, were taken ashore unhurt. A crewmate is missing at sea, presumed dead. The ship was originally expected to sink, but now both the Salong and Stena are expected to stay afloat. Fires aboard both vessels, which collided off the East Yorkshire coast, have continued to burn overnight. German shipping firm Ernst Russ said. The German firm added, out of respect for the investigation and all involved, we will not comment further at this time. Assistant Chief Coast Guard John Craig has said salvage companies are at the scene and are developing a plan for both the Salong and the Stena Immaculate oil tanker. The Salong is currently being held offshore in a safe position by a tugboat, John said. A tow line has now successfully been put in place and a tug is holding Salong offshore in a safer position. There are still some flames visible on the main deck of the Salong and firefighting is focusing on this area. A salvage plan is being developed with the appointed salvors on scene. He explained that the fire on the Stena Immaculate has been greatly reduced and that there are no flames visible. Despite this, a second salvage company has been brought in for the U.S. chartered ship, which remains at anchor with safety tugs on site. John said efforts to stop pollution spreading following the crash were continuing. He explained, a comprehensive counter-pollution response is in place and HM Coast Guard continues to make preparations for any pollution that may occur as a result of the damage to the vessels. The MCA's, Maritime and Coast Guard Agency, concern in relation to tanks on the Salong has reduced with tugs now able to work in close vicinity. The threat from the previously identified dangerous goods on board has reduced significantly. John added, air quality sampling onshore has shown no toxins and modeling from the Met Office indicates no threat to the public. We continue to engage actively with Humberside Police, salvors, the port authorities and other agencies to protect the public and the environment as far as possible while continuing to respond to the developing situation. A search for a missing crew member from the cargo ship was called off last night, while Coast Guard aircraft monitor the situation. HM Coast Guard said efforts to find the person from the Salong container ship had ended after an extensive search, following the ship's collision with the jet fuel-carrying Stena Immaculate tanker on Monday morning. Transport Minister Mike Cain told MPs on Tuesday that something went terribly wrong for the crash to happen and there was no evidence of foul play. He added that the government would do everything to recover the body of the mariner. The maritime company managing the Stena Immaculate, Crowley, said the vessel was struck by the Salong while anchored off the coast of Hull, causing multiple explosions on board and jet fuel. Crowley said it was unclear how much fuel may have been released, but that Stena Immaculate was carrying 220,000 barrels of jet fuel in 16 segregated cargo tanks when it was struck. At least one tank was ruptured, according to the company. A separate investigation has also been launched by the Marine Accident Investigation Branch and will probe the claims of human error. Senior Investigating Officer Detective Chief Superintendent Craig Nicholson said, Humberside Police have taken primacy for the investigation of any potential criminal offences which arise from the collision between the two vessels. Extensive work has already been carried out and we are working closely with our partners to understand what happened, and to provide support to all of those affected following inquiries undertaken by my team. We have arrested a 59-year-old man on suspicion of gross negligence manslaughter in connection with the collision. This follows the conclusion of search operations by HM Coast Guard for the missing crew member of the Salong. Our thoughts are with the family of the missing crew member and I have appointed family liaison officers to make contact and provide support to the family. The man arrested remains in custody at this time whilst inquiries are underway and we continue speaking with all those involved to establish the full circumstances of the incident. It was initially reported that the Salong was carrying sodium cyanide, which can produce harmful gas when combined with water. Owners of the boat, however, have since confirmed this not to be the case. For empty containers on board that previously contained the hazardous chemical will continue to be monitored, it added. An exclusion zone with a radius of 1 kilometer is currently in place around both vessels. The Salong container ship involved in a collision in the North Sea on Monday is now expected to stay afloat, the Transport Secretary said. Heidi Alexander said she met with the Maritime and Coast Guard Agency's Chief Executive Virginia McVie on Tuesday afternoon to discuss the response to the incident. She said, I am reassured to hear indications from the ship's owners which suggest the sodium cyanide containers were empty and that efforts to confirm this by the salvors are underway. I was also pleased to have been informed that early indications suggest that both vessels are now expected to stay afloat and that the Salong can be towed away from the shore, and salvage operations can get underway. I will continue to monitor the response and have asked for regular updates, including on any potential environmental impacts, across government and our agencies. Helen J. of the National Trust said teams were monitoring the coastline for visible signs of pollution affecting seabirds, sea life and the coast itself. She said, any pollution incident can have a devastating impact on our wildlife and this is a vital time for many migratory birds as they return to our shores for the breeding season, such as puffins, terns, and gannets, as well as marine life including seals, dolphins, fish and harbor porpoise.